All right, guys, welcome back to the compound. Got another project going on today. We're working on the Amc Javelin. We're going to be putting in the Moser axles in. I've actually been working at it for a while, trying to figure out a good way to do it. They didn't come with great instructions, so I had to do a little bit of research, and I got one side done. So I'll show you what I got done, and then we'll do the other side together. So here we go. Alright guys, we're in the back of the shop here. As you can see, I got one axle in already. And the other axle's over here. Got quite a mess back here. This is an AMC 20 rear end. And they're pretty strange. They originally come with two-piece axles. Let me show you. So these are the original axles here. As you can see, the hub of the axle is splined and bolted to the shaft. So the problem with that is the splines become weak if you have good traction, like at a drag strip, or if you have a sticky tire or something. The splines become weak, and there's one keyway in there, and it just spins the hub on the axle. And in rare cases, your wheel and hub can actually fall off. So before I went and put some sticky tires on the Javelin and have too much horsepower to where I can cause a problem here, I wanted to send my axles in and get one-piece axles made. And I actually sent them in so they could measure them, or you can send them in yourself, measure them yourself, and they can make them for you. As expensive as they are, I decided to spend a couple extra dollars and ship them in. That way there's no mistake, and they are the exact fit. So here's the one-piece axle. As you can see, it's like a normal axle shaft, all one piece. There's no nut on the end, no splines that can strip. So let's go ahead and assemble it and put it in. We got a roller bearing and a retainer. Let me pull that out of the package. So here's our roller bearing and the retainer that holds it onto the shaft. They have to be pressed on. And this bearing is directional, which has been my problem all day today, trying to figure out which way it went on. Consulted with some people, went online, tried to find some answers, and didn't find much. So I measured everything. The width of the bearing, the width of the spacer, the depth in which the inner seal is in the axle tube. This style has an inner and outer seal. The inner seal keeps the axle lube from getting on the bearing because it's a packed, originally it's a packed tapered bearing. Now we're switching to a sealed bearing, so we really don't need the inner seal, but we're gonna leave it in there just to prevent any leaks, because oil can seep past the bearing and out here. We will also seal this surface with RTV. So let's assemble our bearings onto the axle, and we'll go from there. Let me get some stuff together. Alright, so I got our parts together. This is a dust cover. It goes all the way on the outside. It's the first thing behind the hub flange. This is our outer seal I was talking about earlier. I packed the inside of the seal with a little bit of grease, because there's a spring in there. Sometimes they pop off, and the grease helps it stay in place, and also lubricates the inner edge of the seal in here for when you're sliding it on the shaft. Now this is our bearing. And this is our retainer. And this is our backing plate. So this is the order that they go on. You got to put everything on, and then the bearing and retainer on last. So this is the order: dust shield, seal, the backing plate, and the bearing, and then the retainer. So I'm going to put that on for you, and then we'll press the bearing, bring it over to the press and press it on. Alright, so first you want to put your dust shield on. You want to make sure everything's oriented in the right direction. The hub, of course, facing out. So you want to put your dust shield on. You want to make sure your seal is lubricated, and you want the grease inside the where the spring is so it can't pop away. So you want to put that on. Like that. And then next is the backing plate. Of course, the brake side's going to be out. Like that. And next is going to be the bearing. I'm putting the lip that sticks out further towards the inside, towards the carrier. Like that. So we're going to go press that on, and then this is the retaining ring. That's going to get pressed on behind it. So let's head over to the press, and we'll press them on there. Alright, so we're over at the press here. Got my bearing and retainer. So what we're going to want to do is find something to press against using the press. We don't want to press directly on our bearing. We want to make sure we press on this inside ring because we're pressing the shaft through this center. So I found this piece of bearing, some used piece cut off, and it fits almost perfect on the center. So we're going to want to use that to press the bearing on, and then we're going to use it again to press the retainer on. So you want to again make sure you orient the bearing in the correct direction. Slide it onto the axle. Using our adapter piece that I found. Slide that onto the shaft. Alright, we now got the whole assembly on the press. You're going to want to block to press against so you don't press them directly on your hub flange. So I got this piece, fits pretty good. Now you just want to make sure you're pretty centered, make sure you're not going to fall off the press. Make sure you're centered with the press itself, the hydraulic ram part. Tighten it up and press it on. So as it's pressing, you want to make sure it's even, going on straight. You should be able to feel it. If you have a good press, there shouldn't be any problem at all. it's the bottom, give it an extra pump, and we can loosen it up. And you just want to double check it's all the way seated. Looks good. And then we want to do the same thing with our retainer ring. So we can lift this back out of here. Put our retaining ring and our adapter here. Line it up, make sure you got a good straight shot at it. And repeat. All right, there we go. So as you can see, the bearing is pressed right up against the retaining ring, or the retaining ring is pressed up against the bearing, I should say. So there we go, we're all assembled. I'll bring you back over to the car and we'll put it in. Alright, so you want to clean this mounting surface up along with the mounting surface on the side of the backing plate here. Then we're going to put RTV on that and we'll slide the axle in. So now we want to RTV the surface, make sure it's clean. Just need a thin layer on the whole surface here. I just use my finger to spread it. Like that. Make sure there's none on that inside edge there where the bearing goes. Next we want to use some Loctite on the outer edge of the bearing. We want to put Loctite around this edge here. That way it can't spin inside the axle housing. So we're going to put some on there and spread it around. All right. I'm going to take the whole thing here. And slide it in. Want to orientate all this stuff the correct way. Slide it in. We want to take our bolts. bolts go through the axle housing, then through the backing plate, through the seal, and then through that dust cover. And I put Loctite on each one of these nuts because we don't want them coming loose inside our brake drum. So I'll put the nuts on and then tighten them up, and I'll bring you back. The one thing about these axles that's nice is it's got this hole in it. This hole enables you to put the air gun or impact or whatever, or wrench, ratchet, whatever you got through there, to tighten up the bolts, where before you would have to get a wrench back like behind it. So that's really nice. So I'm gonna put these on, tighten up, and then I'll bring you guys back. All right, got this axle all ready to go. All set. Now we have to clean up the rear gasket and probably clean all this old fluid out of here with some parts cleaner. This side's ready to go. So I'm gonna clean all this up, get this old gasket out of here, and we'll put a new gasket on, and we'll have to run these brake lines in both. We do have to weld up the axle tubes and weld in the rest of the subframe connectors, so I don't know what we're going to do next, but we'll find out here soon. Alright guys, I got the cover on, I got it all cleaned up inside there. I got the threw the brake drums on for now, and hooked up the emergency brake cables on both sides. Next we're going to put the wheels on, let it down. I gotta move where these rear lift arms are, and that way we can weld in our subframe connectors, and that's gonna be our next step. So let me put the wheels on and lower this thing down and get it ready for some subframe connector installation. So we'll be back. Alright guys, I got my subframe connectors mocked up here, holding them up with the jack stand. So I'm going to weld the front on while it's in the air, and then I'm going to lower it down, put it on the full weight of the vehicles on the tires, and weld the rear. You want to do that because the body flexes on the lift and flexes on the ground, and you want to weld it together the way it's going to be sitting, you know, as you're driving. So I'm going to weld up the front one here. I'm going to do the other side after. And then we're going to set it on the ground. We'll probably set it all 4 tires. I got 4 ramps. So I'll lower it down onto those. That way I got enough room to crawl under. And I'm going to weld this side of the subframe. And then I'm going to have to take the front part of my leaf springs off to weld the other side. So we're gonna get some of that done, and then I'll be back with you guys. All right guys, I've been working away here. Got a whole lot done. My buddy Tom came over to give me a hand with these subframe connectors. Mainly just he was watching the top side of the vehicle because I set it down on all 4 wheels. He was watching the top side while I was welding underneath, just to make sure there was no problems. So I'll show you guys what I got done. I'll grab the light here. Alright, so these are the subframe connectors. You already saw these pads welded in, and I welded the connector to the pad. That guy goes to the floor pan, and then all the way in the back, got her welded on here. Some of these welds are pretty good, some not so much. It's pretty hard to weld the subframe to some of the spots on like the floor pan, because the floor pan is so thin. Gives you a little bit of trouble. So, but all the, you know, subframe to subframe pieces are really good looking because they're nice solid metal. But I think it's going to hold. It's significantly stronger already. You can tell. So yeah, I set it on all 4 of these ramps. That way I had enough room to crawl underneath and weld. Because you want to weld the subframe together when it's on all 4 wheels, because it stiffens the chassis. If you weld it on the lift, it'll actually weld that flex into your frame, and when you set the vehicle down, it'll still be flexing. So you want it to sit in its natural position. So I can't remember if I showed you, but I got the wheels on the ground. Got the wheels on and the axles in. Probably our next project, not tonight, but we got to weld the differential tubes to the housing for some added strength. And we got to run the brake line. I don't know if I'm going to reuse the old one. I got it down there. This is my pile of parts that has come off this car. All sorts of stuff. I got more stuff upstairs. I pretty much keep everything that I took off, just in case I ever need to go back or do something else. So that's about all we're going to be doing for tonight. I got to clean up the shop, and we'll be at another video. We'll be making another video here pretty soon. So stay tuned. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. See you guys later.